This video was originally recorded at the Force for Good class series at Tibet House, New York in February 2018. To learn more about this ongoing series happening at Tibet House and online, please visit tibethouse.us.
So the first chapter is called The Purification of the Buddha Field, as I translated it in those days. And actually still, there's a version online. You don't have to buy this book. There's a slightly updated version on the website of a group called 84,000 online in their reading room. It's a free, common copyright or whatever, it's free. My translation is there. And the Word of the Buddha, the 84,000 website, you can find that online. And so you can read it. And the first chapter is called Purification of the Buddha Field, because that's a conventional word. But I call it nowadays, a buddhaverse. A buddhaverse is how the world seems to be for a Buddha. Like for us, it's a universe. Because each of us, in our unenlightenment, and please forgive me if you happen to be enlightened. I know you don't mind. But if we're unenlightened, we're in a universe, because it all turns. Verso means to turn, so it turns around us. Because each of us secretly is the one of the uni. So it's our universe, right? So a Buddhaverse is different. Buddhaverse means it all turns toward enlightenment. And the difference of our cognition, self-enclosed, self-centered cognition, that doesn't mean we're necessarily too selfish or thing, but our wiring is such that we're self-centered. We think we are inside our skin and we're in the center of our consciousness or somewhere. Or maybe in our brain, we think, or something. And but a Buddha doesn't think that. An enlightened being feels they are equally everybody else as themselves. If you can imagine that. You can imagine it if you've ever had a child or been in love. You are identified very strongly with someone else, where you sort of feel you are them, at least for a moment, for a while. Moms do that for a while. And lovers do that also for a while, all too short, usually, right? But a Buddha is a being that feels that way about everybody, and then once they really feel that they're forever, kind of, they are everywhere. They're with everyone. They feel they are everyone. Therefore, they feel that others' suffering is intolerable. So they manifest whatever they can, and they seem to have very powerful ability to do that manifestation. And they are presented as that anyway. I hope so. I'm still hoping so. I think so. Okay, so all Buddha sutras begin with, in those days I wrote, "Thus have I heard at one time." Although I don't like that nowadays, but that's still, I think I didn't change that because they didn't let me. The editors of the 84,000. Eventually I will change it. "Thus did I hear on a special occasion," is what I would like to say, on a certain occasion. "Thus did I hear," or rather than "have I heard." Have I heard is like how you hear a rumor, I heard around town, have I heard? But what this phrase means, evam maya shrutam ekasmin samaye, which is the beginning of all valid Buddhist sutras, which purport to be recordings of Buddha's own activities and statements and deeds and so on. And what that means is that the person who recited this and who others then learned it from or wrote it down, etc., the rapporteur, you could say, did hear this directly from the Buddha on a special occasion. That's what it means. So it's a statement of authenticity, So have I heard has a little bit rumorish sort of thing about it, I heard around, and then they put the at one time back. At one time the Buddha was somewhere, but that's wrong. It's thus did I hear on a certain occasion, on a single occasion I heard it. That's what somebody is saying, Anyway, all Buddha sutras are like that. "The Lord Buddha was in residence in the garden of Amrapali, in the city of Vaishali, attended by a great gathering." And this has a kind of funny context, because Amrapali was the equivalent of a movie star. She was like Elizabeth Taylor of that age in Vaishali. She was a great performer and a very, very wealthy and very influential citizen. And the Buddha had a habit when he would visit a city or a town on there, because he was a mendicant, and his people in the order were mendicants. We say monks, but he wasn't really a monk in what we think of as a monk in a monastery. He was someone who lived by begging alms and wandered, didn't have a fixed residence. So he would beg, and in exchange for the free lunch, he would give a teaching or something. That was like the way he lived once he was enlightened, on purpose to sort of spread the vibe, you know. And when he would approach a city, the first person who would invite him and the monks to spend the night in their garden or somewhere, usually he didn't like to go and live in houses, but sometimes he did if a king had prepared something. But usually he would stay in a garden or in a kind of like a grove or something, you know, where they might have a little hut if it was rainy or something, but otherwise outdoors like that. And Amrapali had a better chariot than the mayor, and her horses were faster. So when she heard the Buddha was in the neighborhood, she raced with the mayor, and she beat the mayor. And she was the first one to say, "Will you please stay in my garden?" And then the mayor came too late, pulled up in a cloud of dust, and was all miffed, because Buddha was staying, you know, Buddha, great holy man, great wandering philosopher, great sage, was staying in the garden of the movie star, rather than in his, you know, mayoral mansion garden or whatever it was. So the mayor and the elders of the city were not going to listen to Buddha. They were all miffed. And he was there in the thing. And then the young people, though, came to see him in the garden, as you'll see in the text. So then they described the assembly of a lot of monks. There are 8,000 monks in his entourage, according to this, and 32,000 bodhisattvas. The bodhisattvas some of them come from other universes in Mahayana sutras. Because when a Buddha teaches in a particular planet, then they come zooming in. And they had aliens, they were happy with aliens, they were nice aliens, because they were bodhisattvas, and they didn't have to have ships and metal ships, you know, and drive around. They just could go by mind travel, just a zip like that. They could beam into this solar system, or whatever it was. And so some of them are parked in the sky, you know. Then there are all kinds of gods and fairies and elves, quite a collection of entities. And they're described here in detail, which are, you know, about the monks, he said, they were calm and dignified like royal elephants. These are really enlightened mendicants. They had accomplished their work. They were all saints, all of them. They had done what they had to do, cast off their burdens, attained their goals, and totally destroyed the bonds of existence. So in a way, they had attained a kind of nirvana, these mendicants, Buddha's disciples. They all had attained the utmost perfection of every form of mind control. They were great yogis and yoginis. There were some nuns also, some female mendicants. And then the bodhisattvas, they go on more at length about the bodhisattvas, you know, which sattva means something like a hero, and bodhi means, or heroine or hero, it's not gender neutral, and bodhi means enlightenment, so enlightenment hero. And they are highly advanced and developed beings, many of them. Some are real beginners, actually. Anybody who gets an idea that they could become a perfectly enlightened being, and that that's the best thing to do with your life, is try to become that with your living process, and makes a vow that I'm going to become a being who is going to be total bubble of bliss forever, and I'm going to be so helpful to all the other beings. I'm going to see to it that they become free of suffering. I'm going to bring them all with me. That person becomes a bodhisattva when they really become dedicated like that. They become that, even though they don't have anything like the ability to do it. But in a way, there are two prerequisites. They have to recognize there is such a higher type of consciousness that is achievable, or embodiment and consciousness, as a Buddha, which is not easy to imagine. It's not a god. It's not an ordinary human. It's something really remarkable, different kind of a being almost. But it comes out of the human form most easily. Also divine form, but human form most easily. And that's the first thing. One has to be able to imagine that, to have that as a goal, that is possible. And then second is one has to have a sense of the conservation of energy, like the second law of thermodynamics, and including one's mind process as an energy, and realize that one will never not be continuing, so that it doesn't seem preposterous to say, I'm going to change the entire universe and bring all beings into happiness. Because you might as well, since you're stuck with them for eternity anyway. And when you feel that's the common sense thing, then it becomes like normal. It doesn't become like a crazy thing, you know. If you are a materialist and you think you're only living this one life, like in some Zen centers that I know, and they say, beings are numberless, I vow to save them all from suffering. But that's not a real vow because they don't think that's possible. Because they think they're going to just be dead when they're dead, because they think they're modern people, you know, and that you don't have to go into some old-fashioned superstitious idea about being reborn, having a soul. We know better now, we're modern people. You know, they wrongly think, because the material scientists pretend they've discovered the lack of the future existence of somebody, of themselves. They pretend that's a scientific discovery. But can I ask you this question? How come nobody got a Nobel Prize for discovering nothing? I'm going to write the Nobel Committee in Stockholm and say, I discovered nothing, can I have a prize? What would that mean? Nobody ever discovered nothing. Nobody knows that there's no person after death outside of the body. Nobody knows that. They act like it's just heresy to talk about it. But they don't know that. That's a blind faith. Actually, there's no evidence that anything is nothing. In fact, the contrary, that nothing is what you'd expect. So nobody's going to become nothing. So I have a slogan I like to do when I talk about the Book of the Dead. A lot of you have heard it, I'm sure, too many times. Nobody gets out of here a dead. So that's the second prerequisite. So that there is this possibility of this higher form of existence, of being an enlightened being, and that you have endless time to achieve it, where you and all beings will be in a state of permanent bliss without any suffering. That's possible, and is therefore highly desirable. There couldn't be anything more desirable, don't you think? You know, but do we believe that's such a thing? No. We can't imagine it. And so therefore we have to work to imagine it. That takes effort. But it becomes imaginable in the context of infinite relativity and infinite and eternal also. So infinite in time as well as space. Given infinite time, anything could happen. And given infinite relational reality, anything can happen. Right? I mean, this whole, you know, they have this thing, you know, planets are running away from us. Well, no wonder they're running away from us. With politicians and leaders, world leaders like we have today, I'd be running away too if I was a different galaxy, you know. So naturally they're running away, you know. And then therefore, they say that the universe is such that if there is anything beyond a certain distance, then the light would have no time to get back here. You know what I mean? They have a theory like that because of their notion of speed of light. But that doesn't mean there isn't something that we don't see that's beyond that. And the idea that that there's even an argument about finite versus infinite is ridiculous. Because if you say finite, it means it has a limit. Something that has a limit, in order for it to be a limit, there has to be something on the other side. Right? You have a boundary, then there's something on the other side. You can't have a boundary and nothing on the other side. Because then you say nothing is there. And that's a senseless statement. Right? Yeah? Some of you look skeptical. Well, because people are scared of infinity, of course. Because then everything could be out of control, you know. They don't know something might pop up out of infinity. You know, if our whole universe that we see, you know, could be itself inside a subatomic particle, inside a different dimensional universe, then some bulldozer could run over it 1 second from now. It would be much worse than Santa Barbara or an earthquake or like a hurricane. You know. The whole thing could instantly be destroyed, right? Like, you know, or we could be a subatomic particle in somebody in another giant universe's electron accelerator, and they're looking for the Higgs boson. they just blow us up. Us and all the bozos in the White House and here and there. You know. So,
This video was brought to you in part through the generous support of the Tibet House US membership community and viewers like you. To learn more about the benefits of Tibet House membership, including special tours with Robert Thurman and geographic expeditions, please visit tibethouse.us. Trips in 2019 include Sri Lanka.